The number your doctor circled on your last kidney panel, and the one they called normal, is calculated from a molecule your body produces less of every year after 60. Not because your kidneys are working better, but because your muscles are getting smaller. A team led by Dr. O. Allison Patok and Dr. Michael Schlipak, working with researchers at the University of California, San Diego, and the San Francisco VA, published a study in the journal Kidney Medicine in March of 2023. They looked at older adults whose two different kidney measurements disagreed with each other. And what they found is that when those two numbers diverge, the one printed on your standard lab panel, the one almost every primary care office orders by default, is the one that gets it wrong, not by a little, by enough to change the stage of kidney disease you are actually in. So right now you are in one of two situations, and you cannot tell which one from the printout in front of you. In the first situation, your eGFR number is honest. Your kidneys are filtering the way the number says they are. Your doctor read it correctly. The mild dip, if there was one, is the normal aging your doctor mentioned. You're fine. In the second situation, your eGFR number is reading your muscle mass more than it is reading your kidneys. The molecule it depends on, creatinine, drops every year you lose muscle after 60. So the number on your printout goes up on paper while your actual filtration rate goes down. You are not in the early stage of kidney disease, the printout shows. You are in a later one. And the only test that would tell you which of those two situations is yours, a test that has been recommended by International Kidney Guidelines since 2022, was almost certainly not ordered at your last appointment. You cannot guess. You cannot feel it. The two situations look identical from the outside. The only way to know which door is yours is the second test. And by the end of this hour, you are going to know its name, what it costs, how to ask for it, and what the result means when it comes back. By the end of this hour, you will know which of those two doors is yours. You will know the name of the test that settles it, and you will know how to spell it to the receptionist when you call. You will know the 3 warning signs that a creatinine-only panel cannot catch. You will know what your doctor's face means when you say the test name out loud. There are 3 possible reactions, and you will recognize each one. You will know the exact sentence, the one that gets the test ordered, or if it is declined, gets your request documented in your chart for the next visit. And you will know what to say at the family dinner when your son or your daughter or your sister asks why you have been reading about kidneys. If you have your last lab printout nearby, take a moment and find it. If you do not have it in front of you, picture the line that says eGFR followed by a number. That number is the number we are going to talk about for the rest of this hour. One thing before we go further, nothing in this video is a reason to stop a medication, skip a dose, or change your treatment on your own. Nothing here is a diagnosis. What we are doing is learning a piece of information so that when you sit down in front of your doctor at your next appointment, you can have a different conversation than the one you had at the last one. Because here is what I think happened at the last one. You sat in the chair, the medical assistant took your blood pressure, the doctor came in, opened your chart on the screen, scrolled through the lab results, and at some point their eyes landed on the kidney section and they said something. Maybe they said the number was fine. Maybe they said it was a little low, but normal for your age. Maybe they said the words, "We will watch it," or "We will keep an eye on that." And then they moved on to the next thing on the screen, the cholesterol, the A1C, the next appointment, and you nodded. Because what else were you supposed to do? You did not have a follow-up question ready. You did not have the words. You did not even know that the number had a second version that could read differently. You drove home, or you walked out to the car, or you sat in the parking lot for a minute before turning the key, and somewhere on the way back, The question came, the one you did not ask, the one that sounded something like this. But what does "we will watch it" actually mean? And what are we watching for? And how would we know if it got worse before the next blood draw a year from now? That question stayed with you. You may have looked something up that evening, a symptom, a supplement, a diet change. Maybe you asked a sibling or a friend who had been through something similar. Maybe you typed into a search bar at 11 at night, the way people in your situation do, with the lamp on and the rest of the house quiet. The answers you found were either too alarming or too vague. Neither one was the answer to the actual question you had. The actual question you had was this: is my kidney number telling me the truth? And if it is not, what is the test that would, by the end of this hour, you will have the words. Which of the two doors is yours depends in part on which of three situations you are sitting in right now. The first situation, your most recent eGFR was in the normal range, 60 or above, and your doctor did not flag anything. You have noticed over the past year or two that you are not as strong as you used to be. The jar you used to open is harder. The grip is not what it was. You are eating less protein than you used to, or you are eating the same amount, but it is not building the muscle it used to build. If this is you, pay close attention to segment 1, because the mechanism we are about to describe is the mechanism that may be hiding behind your normal number. The second situation, your most recent eGFR was somewhere between 45 and 59. Your doctor used the words mild decline, or early stage, or borderline. They said, we will watch it. They did not order a second test. If this is you, the kidney guidelines that came out in 2022, guidelines I will name in segment 3, specifically recommend a confirmatory test for the exact range your number sits in. Segment 4 is going to give you the script for asking for it. The third situation, your eGFR has been declining slowly over the last 2 or 3 annual panels. Not enough to alarm anyone, but enough that you noticed when you compared the printouts. You are not on dialysis. You are not in stage 4. You are watching a slow drift, and you do not know whether it is real or whether it is something else. If this is you, the discordance we will discuss in segment 1 may be the missing piece. Pay particular attention to segment 2, where we will talk about the warning signs that drift either way. No matter which of the three you are, the mechanism underneath is the same. And it starts with something your kidneys do that no standard blood test was ever designed to measure directly. The number on your lab printout, the one labeled eGFR, does not measure your kidneys. Read that sentence again. The number does not measure your kidneys. It measures a molecule called creatinine in your blood, and then it runs that creatinine number through an equation that includes your age, your sex, and a few other variables, and it spits out an estimate of how well your kidneys are filtering. That is what the letter E at the front of eGFR stands for. Estimated. The estimate works on one assumption. The assumption is that your body produces creatinine at a roughly predictable rate. And that assumption was built on data from younger adults, on average, with more muscle mass than the person watching this video right now. Here is what creatinine actually is. Your muscles, when they work, break down a small amount of a compound called creatine into creatinine. That creatinine spills into your blood. Your kidneys filter it out. The amount left over in your blood at any given moment depends on 2 things: how much your muscles are producing and how well your kidneys are clearing it. Think of it like a fuel gauge in an old car. The gauge does not actually measure how much gas you have. It measures the position of a float that sits in the tank. If the tank is full size and intact, the float gives you a reasonable reading. But if the tank itself is slowly getting smaller, if over the years the walls of the tank are shrinking, the float can be sitting high while the actual fuel inside is dropping. The gauge will say 3/4 full. The car will run out of gas earlier than the gauge predicts. After 60, your muscle mass shrinks. The medical word for it is sarcopenia. By age 70, the average healthy adult has lost a meaningful percentage of the muscle they had at 40. Some people lose more, some less, depending on activity and protein intake. But the average loss is real, and it accelerates after 60. When your muscles get smaller, they produce less creatinine. Less creatinine spills into your blood. The number on your printout goes down. The equation reads that lower creatinine and concludes incorrectly that your kidneys must be filtering well. The estimated GFR comes back high. The tank is shrinking. The gauge reads 3/4 full. This is not a flaw your doctor invented. This is a known property of the test. It has been documented in the medical literature for over a decade. In 2012, a team led by Dr. Leslie Inker published a paper in the New England Journal of Medicine that introduced a second equation, one that used a different molecule called Cystatin C, either alone or in combination with creatinine. Their data showed that for many adults, especially older adults, the Cystatin C version gave a more accurate estimate of actual kidney filtration. What is Cystatin C? It is a small protein produced at a roughly constant rate by every nucleated cell in your body, not just muscle cells, every cell, which means Cystatin C production does not drop when your muscles shrink. It stays steady. So when Cystatin C ends up in your blood and gets filtered by your kidneys, the amount left over reflects kidney function, not body composition. It is the second instrument. It measures the fuel directly, not the position of a float in a changing tank. Then, in March of 2023, a team led by Dr. O. Allison Patak and Dr. Michael Schliphack at the University of California, San Diego published a study in the journal Kidney Medicine. They looked specifically at older adults whose creatinine-based eGFR and Cystatin C-based eGFR disagreed with each other. The two numbers in many older adults do disagree. The question was, when they disagree, which one is closer to the truth? The answer in their data was that the Cystatin C version was the more reliable predictor of actual filtration and of downstream kidney outcomes in the older adult population. Not in every single case. The clinical recommendation is to use both together when they diverge. But the creatinine-only number, the one almost universally printed on standard lab panels, was the one that more often flattered the kidneys when the kidneys did not deserve flattery. This finding sits on top of older work. The Berlin Initiative study followed 657 adults over the age of 70 and tracked their kidney measurements over time. A Korean longitudinal study followed almost 700 older adults for 6 years and tied Cystatin C measurements to outcomes including muscle loss and physical decline. A Japanese cohort of nearly 950 community-dwelling older adults found that the ratio between the two eGFR measurements, Cystatin C over creatinine, was itself a useful marker of underlying body changes. The picture across all of this research is consistent. After 60, the standard kidney number on the standard lab panel has a known blind spot. The blind spot is your muscle mass. The fix, the second instrument, has existed in the medical literature since 2012 and has been recommended by international guidelines since 2022. It is called Cystatin C, and the odds are very high that it was not ordered at your last appointment. One more time before we move on. Nothing in this segment is a reason to change anything you are doing right now. Do not stop a medication. Do not change a dose. We are building information so that the next conversation with your doctor is a different conversation. The question sitting in your head right now is probably this: how do I know if this is happening to me? There are 3 warning signs that point to it, and the first one is something you can check before the end of this video. Using only the printout you already have in your hand. There are 3 warning signs that the creatinine-only eGFR on your lab panel may be flattering your kidneys. Each one is something the standard annual panel will not flag for you because the panel was not designed to catch it. The first warning sign is the most common, and it is something you can check tonight. It is the drift, the slow year-over-year drift in the eGFR number on your annual lab printouts. Not a crash, not a sudden change. A drift of 3 or 4 points lower each year, sometimes less, sometimes more. A drift that no single year flags as concerning, but that when you put 5 years of printouts side by side tells a story. The reason the standard panel does not flag this is that each individual result falls inside the lab's reference range, and reference ranges are wide. A number can drift from 88 to 82 to 76 to 70 over 4 years and never trigger a flag, because every one of those numbers taken alone is still in the normal column. But here is what the drift can mean in someone over 60. If you are losing muscle each year, when after 60 most adults are, your creatinine production is dropping each year. That alone should make the eGFR go up on paper. If your eGFR is instead drifting down, you are losing kidney function faster than the test can see. The gauge is reading 3/4 full while the tank is shrinking and the fuel is dropping. The decline is real and it is being masked. What to do right now? If you have your last 3 or 4 years of lab printouts, look at the eGFR line on each one and write the numbers down in order. If you do not have them, log into your patient portal. Most systems keep at least 3 years of history and write the numbers down. If you cannot access them, request copies at your next appointment. The pattern is the warning sign. A single number cannot tell you what the pattern can. Pause the video right now if you are near your printouts and want to do this before we continue. Take 2 minutes, write the numbers down in order. When you come back, you will have the first piece of evidence in your hand. The second warning sign is something the standard panel cannot measure at all. It is the discordance, the gap between what your kidney function should look like based on your creatinine and what your kidney function actually looks like when measured a different way. The PATOC study from 2023 looked at exactly this gap in older adults. When the gap exists, it almost always means the creatinine number is the optimistic one. You cannot see the gap from the standard panel alone. The standard panel only gives you one of the 2 numbers. The discordance only becomes visible when both eGFR-CR, the creatinine-based version, and eGFR-CYS, the Cystatin C-based version, have been run on the same blood draw. Your last panel almost certainly only had the first one, which means the gap, if it exists in you, is invisible right now. Not absent, invisible. The reason the standard panel does not catch this is structural. Cystatin C is a separate test that costs more, requires the lab to have the assay available, and is not bundled into the basic comprehensive metabolic panel that most annual physicals order. It has to be ordered specifically and separately. Most primary care offices do not order it routinely. The 2022 international guidelines recommend it specifically for adults whose creatinine eGFR is between 45 and 59, but the guidelines and the ordering habits of primary care have not caught up to each other yet. We will get to why in segment 3. The third warning sign is the body sign. This is the one most people miss because they do not connect it to their kidneys at all. It is the combination of 3 things showing up together. You are not as strong as you used to be. Specifically, your grip strength has dropped. The jar opener is more useful than it used to be. Getting up from a low chair takes more effort. Second, you are eating the same amount of protein as you used to, but the muscle is not coming back the way it did at 50. Third, your weight may be stable or even up, fat replacing muscle on the same frame. Those 3 together are the signature of sarcopenia. And here is what matters for the kidney number. The exact same muscle loss that is making your grip weaker and your strength drop is the muscle loss that is dropping your creatinine production. The body sign and the lab number are linked. If you are seeing the body sign and your eGFR has been stable or even slightly improving on paper over the last few years, that is not necessarily good news. That can be the signature of a creatinine number that is being held up by something other than kidney health. Researchers in the Korean Frailty and Aging Cohort study followed almost 700 older adults for 6 years and found that the ratio between cystatin C and creatinine, the very ratio the standard panel does not give you, was itself a usable marker of the muscle loss happening in their participants. The Japanese cohort study of nearly 950 older adults found the same thing in a different population. The body and the lab are talking to each other. The standard panel only listens to half the conversation. So the 3 warning signs again: the drift in eGFR over multiple years, the invisible discordance between the 2 versions of the test, and the body signature of sarcopenia Kermpurnar, grip, strength, the slow loss of muscle on the same frame. None of these 3 on their own is a diagnosis. None of them is a reason for alarm. What they are is a reason for the second test. They are the reasons you bring with you to the next appointment when you ask for it. And right now, you are probably asking the same question I asked the first time I read this research. Why has my own doctor never mentioned any of this to me? The answer is not what you expect, and it is the answer that determines how the next conversation goes. Why has my own doctor never mentioned any of this to me? That is the question. And the answer is not the answer most internet videos will give you. It is not that your doctor is hiding something. It is not that anyone is being paid off. It is not negligence. The answer is something more boring and more structural. And once you see it, you stop being angry and start being useful. Here is the shape of the answer. The research that established cystatin C as a more accurate measure of kidney function in older adults has been accumulating for over a decade. The 2012 paper by Dr. Leslie Inker in the New England Journal of Medicine introduced the modern combined equation. Papers through the 2010s and into the early 2020s confirmed the pattern across different populations. The Patak paper from March 2023, the one we covered in segment 1, was one of the most recent to specifically address the discordance in older adults. The International Kidney Guidelines, the ones produced by an organization called KDIGO, which stands for Kidney Disease Improving Global Outcomes, were updated in 2022. The 2022 update specifically recommends cystatin C confirmatory testing for adults whose creatinine-based eGFR falls between 45 and 59. That is a specific, written, published recommendation. It exists. It is not hypothetical. Now, here's the structural problem. Guidelines and primary care ordering habits do not move at the same speed. Research published in major medical journals consistently shows that the average gap between a guideline update and widespread adoption in primary care is somewhere between 10 and 17 years. Not because primary care doctors are slow people, because primary care is a system that runs on the patterns it learned during training, reinforced by every appointment that goes well, and updated only when something forces a change. Think about what a primary care doctor's day actually looks like. Most primary care physicians in the United States see somewhere between 20 and 25 patients in a day. The average appointment is between 15 and 20 minutes. In that 15 to 20 minutes, the doctor has to review the chart, address the chief complaint, examine the patient, order any tests, write the note, address any inbox messages that came in during the appointment, and queue up the next patient. The mental space for reconsidering whether a test that has worked for 40 years should now have a companion test bolted onto it. That mental space does not exist inside 15 minutes. So what does the doctor do? The doctor runs on patterns. The pattern for a 68-year-old at their annual physical with no acute complaints is the basic metabolic panel, the lipid panel, the A1C if applicable, the thyroid if indicated. That pattern was set in residency. It has been reinforced by thousands of patients who did fine on it. The pattern works for the bulk of the population most of the time. The pattern does not on its own prompt the doctor to add Cystatin C because the pattern was set before Cystatin C was a routine option. The KDIGO guideline update from 2022 is sitting in a journal. The pattern is sitting in your doctor's hands. They have not yet met each other inside the 15 minutes of your appointment. This is not negligence. This is the lag built into how medicine moves. A guideline gets published. Specialists adopt it within a year or two. Academic medical centers adopt it within 3 to 5 years. Community primary care, on average, adopts it within a decade or more. The lag is structural. It is the same lag that delayed widespread adoption of statins for primary prevention, the same lag that delayed widespread adoption of newer blood pressure targets, the same lag that delayed widespread screening for atrial fibrillation in older adults. The lag is not a personal failing. It is the shape of the system, which means the only way the pattern gets updated for you specifically before the slow tide of guideline adoption reaches your doctor's office is if someone in the room brings the new information in. The someone in your case is you. You do not have to be confrontational. You do not have to bring a stack of printed studies. You do not have to argue. You bring one sentence and one test name. Your doctor, assuming they are like most doctors, which is to say a thoughtful person doing a hard job inside 15 minutes, will either know exactly what you are talking about or will not know but will be willing to look into it or will decline politely. We are going to walk through all 3 of those reactions in the next segment, but before we do, hold this in your head. The lag is real. The lag is not the doctor's fault. The lag is also not yours to absorb in silence. The question is what you do with it. And the answer is a conversation, a very specific conversation that starts with one sentence. This segment is the practical one. Every sentence here is a tool you carry into the room with you. The test you are asking for is called Cystatin C, spelled C-Y-S-T-A-T-I-N, then the letter C. When you call the office to schedule the appointment, or when you message your doctor through the patient portal beforehand, you can spell it that way. Most receptionists will not have heard of it. Most medical assistants will not have heard of it. That is fine. Your doctor will recognize it. The cost of a Cystatin C test in the United States, paid out of pocket, typically runs between $30 and $70 at most commercial labs. With insurance, coverage varies. Medicare typically covers it when there is a documented clinical reason, meaning your doctor writes in the order or in the note that they are ordering it to confirm an existing eGFR result or to evaluate kidney function in the context of a specific concern. If your doctor orders it without a documented reason, insurance may not cover it. This is one of the reasons the conversation matters. You want it ordered and documented, not just ordered. Here's the opening sentence, the one you walk in with. You say, I have been reading about the difference between creatinine-based eGFR and Cystatin C-based eGFR in adults over 60. I would like to ask whether it would be reasonable to add a Cystatin C to my next blood draw to confirm my kidney function. That is the sentence. You can write it on a piece of paper and bring it with you. You can read it off the paper. That is allowed. Doctors are used to patients bringing notes. Bringing a note is a sign you have thought about it. It is not a sign of disrespect. After you deliver that sentence, one of 3 things will happen. Reaction 1. Your doctor knows about Cystatin C and has been thinking about ordering it more often. They will say something like, that is a good question. Yes, we can add that. They will write the order. You will get the test at your next blood draw. The result will come back. The conversation moves forward. This reaction happens more often than you might expect. Many doctors are aware of the KDIGO update and have been thinking about how to incorporate it. They just have not had a patient ask. Reaction 2. Your doctor has not been ordering Cystatin C routinely, but is willing to look into it. They will say something like, I have heard of it, but I have not been ordering it. Let me check on the indication. They may pull up something on the computer. They may say, let us add it this time and see what we find. This is the most common reaction. The willingness is there. The pattern just had not been updated. Reaction 3, your doctor declines. They may say they do not think it is necessary. They may say the creatinine result is fine, and they are not concerned. They may say it is not standard practice in their office. If this happens, you do not argue. You do not push back. You do not threaten to find another doctor. You ask one more thing and one more thing only. You say, would you be comfortable noting in my chart that I asked about Cystatin C today and that we agreed not to pursue it at this time? That is the keystone sentence. Memorize it if you can. Write it down if you cannot. What that sentence does is simple. It creates a written record inside your medical chart that you asked. It does not accuse your doctor of anything. It does not force them to order anything. It documents the request. Documentation matters because next year or the year after, if your kidney numbers continue to drift, the documented request is the thread that connects this appointment to that one. It is also the thread that if you later see a nephrologist or a different primary care doctor, lets them see that the question was raised and addressed. Most doctors will agree to this request. It costs them nothing. They are simply noting a conversation that happened. If a doctor declines even to document the conversation, which is rare but does happen, that is information about the doctor, not about the test. You can take that information and decide what to do with it on your own time outside the appointment. Now, one more piece of practical knowledge for when the result comes back. If your doctor orders Cystatin C and the result is a Cystatin C-based eGFR that is roughly similar to your creatinine-based eGFR, en sex daar on die, in 5 points or so, the two tests agree. Your kidney function is approximately what the creatinine number said it was. That is genuinely reassuring. It is door A from earlier in this video. You can stop worrying about the muscle mass confounder for now and continue your regular monitoring. If the Cystatin C-based eGFR is meaningfully lower than the creatinine-based eGFR, more than 5 to 10 points lower, that is the discordance the Patak 2023 paper described. In that case, your actual kidney function is closer to the Cystatin C number than to the creatinine number. Your doctor may use a combined equation, which uses both for the most accurate single estimate. They may discuss whether to adjust any medication doses because some drugs are dosed based on kidney function, and the dose should be calculated using the more accurate estimate. They may discuss earlier or more frequent monitoring. That is door B. It is not a crisis. It is information that lets the right next steps be taken at the right time. One important note, Cystatin C can be elevated by a few things that have nothing to do with your kidneys. Thyroid disease, particularly hyperthyroidism, can raise it. Steroid use, especially long-term, can raise it. Significant obesity can raise it. Active inflammation in the body can raise it. So if your Cystatin C result comes back high and you have any of those conditions, your doctor will factor those in before drawing any conclusion. A single high Cystatin C in someone with active inflammation is not a kidney diagnosis. It is one piece of a picture. What you do not do. You do not stop a medication based on a result. You do not change your diet drastically based on a result. You do not panic. You bring the result back to your doctor for interpretation, the same way you would bring back any other lab result. The work you did was getting the test ordered. The interpretation is your doctor's job. You now have the test name, the spelling, the cost range, the opening sentence, the 3 doctor reactions, the keystone documentation sentence, and the reading guide for the result. But there is one more thing, and it is a thing that makes all of this work not just at your next appointment, but at every appointment for the rest of your life. Sit back for a moment, or stand up and stretch if you have been sitting. I want you to picture two scenes. The first scene is your next appointment. The one that is coming up, maybe in 3 months, maybe in 6, maybe sooner. You walk in, you have the same chair, the same cuff, the same medical assistant. The doctor comes in, they open your chart, they start to scroll. But this time, in your hand or in your pocket, you have a folded piece of paper. On the paper is a sentence you have practiced reading out loud at home. You have the printout of your last 3 years of eGFR numbers. You know the drift, or you know that there is no drift. You know what Cystatin C is, and what it measures and what it costs. You know the 3 reactions your doctor might have, and you know which one you are hoping for. At some point during the appointment, when the conversation reaches your labs, you take a breath and you say the sentence. And whatever happens next, you are ready for. If the doctor orders the test, you say thank you and move on. If the doctor needs to think about it, you wait calmly. If the doctor declines, you ask just as calmly for the chart documentation. You walk out of that appointment with either a test ordered or a documented request. Either one is a win, either one is a step forward. You get to the car. This time, on the way home, the question that came last time does not come. You already asked it. You already got an answer. The silence in the car is a different silence than it was last year. That is the first future. The second scene is a meal. A few weeks or a few months from now, it might be a Sunday afternoon at your daughter's house. It might be a phone call with your son. It might be a sister, a friend, someone you have known for 40 years. The topic of health comes up the way it does at that table. Someone mentions their blood work. Someone says their doctor wants to watch something. Someone says they do not really know what their numbers mean. And you say something simple. You say, did you know there are 2 different ways to measure kidney function? And after 60, the standard one has a known issue with muscle mass. And the person you are talking to looks up from their plate and says, wait, really? And you tell them the name of the test. And you tell them where you learned about it. And you tell them what to ask. You do not need to be a doctor to do that. You do not need a medical degree. You need to be the person at the table who read the research before the doctor had time to. The person who walked in with one good question. The person who now, when something does not add up at the family dinner, gets asked by the others, what they have been reading lately. That is the identity, not a difficult patient, not an activist, not a hypochondriac. The person who is quietly, specifically prepared. And here is the part that matters most. The skill you just learned, recognize when a standard marker has an age-specific blind spot, find the confirmatory test, bring it calmly to your doctor with documentation. That skill does not only apply to kidney function, it applies to every number on every lab panel you will get for the rest of your life. It applies to the cholesterol ratio that your doctor reads off without explaining. It applies to the thyroid panel that comes back fine but does not include the full picture. It applies to the bone density score and the inflammation markers and the vitamin levels and every other piece of paper that crosses your eyes from a lab. The skill is portable. The kidney number was the proof. The skill is the product. You learned it today. You will use it for the next 20 years. There are 5 questions people in your situation type into a search bar after watching a video like this one. I want to answer them now, briefly, so that if you have one of these questions sitting in your mind, you do not have to look it up later. The first question, how much does a Cystatin C test cost? In the United States, out of pocket at most commercial labs, the test runs roughly $30 to $70. With Medicare, it is typically covered when there is a documented clinical reason. Your doctor writing in the chart that the test is being ordered to evaluate or confirm kidney function. Without a documented reason, coverage is less reliable. Ask your doctor to document the indication when ordering. The second question, can I order Cystatin C without going through my doctor? In most states in the United States, yes, direct-to-consumer lab services will run a Cystatin C for you without a doctor's order. The cost is usually similar to or slightly higher than the insured price. The downside is that you will get a number with no clinical context, and you will need to bring it back to a doctor for interpretation anyway. Going through your doctor is generally the better path because the result goes into your medical record where it can be tracked over time. The third question, if my Cystatin C comes back high, am I in kidney failure? No. A single high Cystatin C is not kidney failure. It is one number. It needs to be interpreted in context. Alongside your creatinine, eGFR, your urine albumin, if available, your overall health, your other conditions, and the confounders we discussed earlier, like thyroid status and inflammation. Kidney failure is a specific clinical diagnosis made by a doctor, not by a single lab number. Do not stop medications, do not change your diet, do not panic, bring the result back to your doctor. The fourth question, should I stop taking my blood pressure medication if my kidneys are not what I thought they were? No. Do not stop any medication based on this video or based on a lab result. Some blood pressure medications are actually protective of kidney function over time. Stopping them suddenly can cause harm. Any change in medication is a conversation with your prescribing doctor based on the full picture of your health, never based on a single number or a single video. This is the compliance line, and I am saying it deliberately because this is the question people most often ask after a video like this. The fifth question, why are you telling me this? What is your angle? The angle is straightforward. This channel exists to translate research that has accumulated in medical journals into language that a person sitting at their kitchen table can use at their next appointment. The research on Cystatin C has been sitting in journals for over a decade. The guideline recommending it has been in place since 2022. The reason most people watching this video have never heard about it is the structural lag we discussed in segment 3. I am telling you because the gap between research and ordinary appointments is real, and closing that gap for one viewer at a time is what this channel does. There is no supplement to sell you at the end of this video. There is no program. There is the test name, the sentence, and the next appointment. Cystatin C is one example. It is not the only example. Look at the medicine cabinet in your bathroom, the one with 5 or 6 or 7 bottles in it. Now picture next to it the folder where you keep your lab printouts, or the inbox in your patient portal where they sit. Every one of those bottles and every one of those numbers was put there for a reason that was right at the time the decision was made, based on the markers and the patterns available to the doctor in that 15 minutes. The structural pattern underneath all of it is this. Standard markers were calibrated on populations that on average skewed younger and healthier than the body you're sitting in right now. Some of those markers age gracefully. They still tell the truth in a 68-year-old body, the same way they told the truth in a 48-year-old body. Many of them do not. The number is the same number on the page, but the body underneath has changed, and the relationship between the marker and the underlying biology has shifted. This is not a conspiracy. It is not malpractice. It is the slow accumulation of evidence about how older bodies differ from younger ones, and the even slower process of getting that evidence into the 15-minute appointment. Some of the bottles on your counter will be exactly right. Some of the numbers on your lab panel will tell the truth. The skill is not to be alarmed at all of them. The skill is to know that the question, is this marker telling the truth for a body of my age, is a legitimate question to ask every time. Sometimes the answer will be yes. Sometimes the answer will be that there is a confirmatory test, like Cystatin C, that adds the missing piece. You do not need to learn every confirmatory test for every marker. You need to know the move. The move is to ask. calmly with documentation, once per appointment, about one thing at a time. The doctor across the desk from you is a good person doing a hard job, and the move works best when you treat them like one. That is the wider truth. The kidney number was the proof. The move is what you take with you. You did not get this far in your life by accepting the first answer when something still felt wrong. You got here because you kept asking. You asked the questions in the car on the way home from appointments. You asked them at 11 at night when the house was quiet. You asked them of friends and siblings and search bars. Now you have the name of the next question. Cystatin C. One test, one sentence, one conversation at your next appointment. Go find your last lab printout tonight or this weekend. Write down your eGFR numbers from the last 3 years. Put them somewhere you will see them before your next appointment. That is the only action this video asks of you. Share this with the one person in your life who is also waiting on a kidney number to mean something. The sibling, the friend, the spouse, the neighbor, the one who has been told that the number is fine and has not been able to stop wondering whether fine is the right word. If your next question is what to do once you know your kidney number is real, whether stage 3 kidney disease has to keep progressing after 60, or whether there are specific things that change the trajectory. I made that video. It is linked below this one. You have one more thing worth paying attention to now. You have the words for it.